this presentation, we have highlighted how important it is to include parent input into the IEP, into the notes. And so can any of you give an example of how you might reflect parent participation on the statewide assessments page, or is it even necessary?
Absolutely, Michelle, it is necessary if there is parent input, but I know when you're looking at statewide assessments, you're going through each one of those areas for students who are eligible for taking the assessments, because they only take it from grades 3rd grade through 11th grade, or 11th grade. We definitely want to document any input the parent provided in regards to the accommodations that the student will receive when taking those statewide assessments.
Normally, when to lead the discussion about accommodations that might be needed for the student, I try to remind the team that the accommodations we want to list are what they're utilizing in the classroom. And I try to lead the conversation with that, because sometimes parents, and again, they're advocating for their kids with the best way they can with what they feel is important. Sometimes parents want to see them with every single accommodation, and it's not something that they're using in the classroom. So by front loading the conversations, parents at that point are able to participate and say, well, at home, he's using this sometimes. And we can document that whether or not he's using that as well in the classroom.
So we're on the offer of FAPE, the service options page, the service options considered. So on this page, we would like you to document any service options that were considered and any concerns that the parent has. So what if a parent says, what are all of the options? My child has been struggling for years, and now that he's eligible for special education, I want him to be in a special class. How would you document that discussion in the notes?
Michelle, with something like this, where you might not be sure where the parent's going with their request, what I try to do is summarize what everyone heard as being the needs for the student. So I might start with the parent and say, what do you feel is most important for your student? So he reads at a 5th grade level and he's in 4th grade. So do you think he's able to keep up with a fast pace of instruction or slow pace? So if there's a question that I may have, by taking a moment with parent and each team member to identify specifically what they feel the needs are of the student, then from there, I would describe each and every service option to the parent. And then if the parent had concerns with pace of instruction, I would make sure in the description that the pace of instruction was described, or the class size, things like that.
I love that idea, because rather than just giving the parent an overview and discussing all options, you tie it directly to the child, so that you answer the question tied specifically to the student needs. I really love that answer. Perfect. Potential harm effect considered. What should we be documenting on the notes page when the case manager is covering this section of the IEP?
So obviously the discussion about potential harmful effects needs to happen in every IEP, because we need to discuss and consider and determine as a team whether or not the potential harmful effects of the services being recommended are worth the benefits of the services being recommended. Because anytime we provide services, special education services, we are either pulling a child from general education time, or we're providing service where they don't have access to their peers, or even to the most restrictive setting where we're providing service outside of a comprehensive campus where they don't have any access to non-disabled peers or the general education environment at all. It really is important to have that discussion about whether or not it's warranted and necessary in order for the student to make educational progress. Just like when we're prescribed something by our physician, right? Are the side effects, the potential harmful effects of me taking this medication worth the benefits that I'm going to reap as a result of me taking this medication? This is an important discussion, and I think the team discussion in this area needs to be documented in the notes in a clear way, and any concerns that the parent has regarding this discussion should be documented in a clear way. So if the parent has a question about the level of restrictiveness about a program that's being considered, this would be a good time to document that in the notes.
Right, and exactly. I think the phrase that comes into mind is informed consent. If you haven't discussed with the parent what the potential harmful effects are they truly giving informed consent to the IEP for the services? You have to give them both sides, the benefits and the potential harmful effects.
Mm-hmm.
Moving forward in discussing supplementary aids, services, and other supports, my question to the team is, does the note taker have to detail all accommodations on the notes page? If not, then what would be important to document?
Michelle, I think that's a great question. I don't think we have to list all of the accommodations in the notes. I think what's more important is to list that we discussed and reviewed either proposed accommodations or proposed modifications, whatever we're proposing, just list that we reviewed that. And then I would highlight any discussion around it. So for example, if we're recommending one specific accommodation and a teacher says that won't work in this class, great, document the discussion of how you could have a similar accommodation to address that one specific class. But I wouldn't list everything in detail.
And then specifically, if there are any parent concerns that pop up about the accommodations or discussion around any particular accommodations, document that discussion and those concerns as well on that notes page.
Right, and we should also consider, make sure we document parents in agreement with that, because if they have a disagreement with an accommodation that's offered and then there's discussion about it, then we want to make sure that they're in agreement with the final decision.
Absolutely, and especially if a parent asks for an accommodation that the team is not recommending, you would want to document the discussion around that, and you would want to support the decision not to add that accommodation with data that you've taken on the student in that area.